Hello there. So today we're thinking back over having read Philippians. I hope you managed to do that yesterday. Read Philippians. And of course the first question to ask is, who was it written to, this letter? And it was written to the church that Paul founded. And the story of the start of that church is in Acts 16:12-40. And he revisits the church later on his second missionary journey in, that's when he founded it, and then he visits it again in Acts 20:1-6. At least two, maybe three visits to Philippi. And a strange coincidence, isn't it, that Philippi was the church where, to which he'd been called by a vision that he had, come over to Macedonia and help us. And he went in response to a direct instruction from God to go there. And yet within days of arriving, he and Silas were in prison. And here he is in prison again in Rome, writing letters to many of his churches. We know that probably Colossians, Philemon and Ephesians are all written from prison probably in Rome towards the end of his life, in about between AD 59 and 61. So Paul was not a young man at this point in his life, and he was in prison again for the gospel. And he's writing to his church in Philippi, the Philippians, and it is marked out by joy. Here is a man who, despite being in prison, despite having been stoned and chased around and treated abominably by many people, he is full of joy. In fact, the word joy or rejoice occurs 14 times in this short letter. You can't get away from the fact that Paul is filled with joy. You know, you sometimes get the impression that Paul is a stern man. When you read Corinthians, you think, gosh, he's very stern. He's very strong in the way he writes to these people. But I think we miss something about him, which we find in Philippians, that he was jolly, he was joyful, he was happy. Well, happy is the wrong word. He was contented. Whatever happened in his life, he was contented because he'd found Jesus. And Jesus meant more to him than anything else in this world. And that lovely verse, which is almost unbelievable but so familiar, which is in verse 21 of chapter 1, which says, "For me to live is Christ, and to die is gain." And that is something that is worth thinking about today. What is your attitude to life and death? Do you hold on to life at all costs? Are you afraid to die? Do you look forward to it? Paul did. Paul said, "For me to live is Christ, and to die is gain." He was in prison, in a Roman prison, and there was persecution going on, and Christians were being killed all the time. And Paul embraced it. He didn't throw himself at it. He embraced it. For me to live is Christ, and to die is gain. That is something to really think about. And then he goes on, doesn't he, in the next verse 22. "If it is to be life in the flesh, which means fruitful labour for me, yet which I shall choose I cannot tell. I'm hard pressed between the two. My desire is to depart and be with Christ, for that is far better, but to remain in the flesh is more necessary on your account." He knew he still had work to do, but there was something in him that really, really, really longed for heaven. Just like you long for home when you're away from home. You long for heaven. It's fascinating to me. When I was growing up, it was, I don't know whether my church was in a particular bubble, that's a new word, isn't it, or a particular phase, but in the youth group, nearly all the songs we sang had a last verse which talked about heaven. You know, all the great hymns talk about, you know, I mean, over 1,000 tongues ends with, when we're there, there'll be all these voices. We'll be able to sing for endless years the praise of him who died for us. Nearly all the great Wesley hymns start with us needing Jesus and end with us going to heaven. You know, and that lovely song we used to sing it all the time, when the roll is called up yonder, I'll be there. You know, when the name list is called up in heaven, I'll be there. I'm on that list. I'm on the list. I'm getting there. I'm going. And you know, and there was another song we used to sing, soon and very soon. I'm going to see the King. Soon and very soon, I'm going to see the King. And as a teenager, that was what we lived on, was those songs which talked about Jesus coming again. And I've always been excited at the idea of going to heaven, as if I were homesick for a place that is my home. This world, there was another song, this world is not my home, I'm just passing through. This world is not my home, I'm just passing through. It's an amazing thing, isn't it? I do remember, though, I'd had a few, had a year or so when I said to the Lord, I know I want heaven, but could I have a little time on earth? Because I'd just met Terry in the year 2001 and we were getting married. And I said to the Lord, don't come too soon, Lord, because I'd like to experience being married to a truly Christian man. I'd been married to a man I thought was a Christian, but who did not. Anyway, the first marriage broke up, and it was a disappointment because I so longed to experience what I'd heard preached about so often, which was what it was like to be married to a man who loved God as much as I did, to be sharing times of prayer, to understand each other on a deeply spiritual level. I wanted to experience that. And that was the only time in my life when I said, Lord, please, Lord Jesus, don't come too soon. I'd really like to experience a Christian marriage for a bit. Well, I've been married 20 years now, and I'm back to the place now. Not that there's anything wrong with our marriage, but I'm back to the place now where my longing is for the Lord Jesus to come in all his glory and restore things on this earth. And this is my thought for the day is this amazing verse, Philippians 1:21. For to me to live is Christ, and to die is gain. Ponder, my friends, ponder today. Have another read of Philippians today in an alternative translation, and I'll see you tomorrow. God bless. Bye-bye.